Part 31. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuchi. Chapter 301. Milo Sunshine Western Restaurant. After glancing at the waiter who was placed safely on the ground by Garcia, Zhang Fengjai flashed a contemptuous sneer in his eyes, put on a very helpless look, but replied with a sarcastic tone. It's obviously just a dog, but it speaks bird language that no one understands. How can I happily order food? After hearing Zhang Fengjai's humiliation of Chi Kuokyo's character, the waiter's eyes immediately ignited with anger, but he was stopped by Garcia's sharp eyes. Since it was Xiao Yi's discourtesy, as the manager and owner of the restaurant, I, Garcia, would like to solemnly apologize to you and this lady. Then, after apologizing with a sincere smile on his face, Garcia gave instructions to Xiaomin, who had just gone to call him. Go and inform the chef to prepare 2 premium steaks and a bottle of 1982 Philo red wine for free for this elegant gentleman and this beautiful girl. Yes, manager. After glancing at Zhang Fengjai and pansweating with envy and jealousy in her eyes, Xiaomin quickly ran to the kitchen. The male waiter known as Xiao Wei looked at pansweating, who was full of surprise, with a look of understanding flashing in his eyes. Boss, I'm not used to drinking those foreign things you have from overseas. Why don't you give me a few bottles of high-strength liquor? Not realizing at all how expensive the red wine Garcia had just gifted was, Zhang Fengjai still followed his own ideas and made new requests. Zhang Fengjai, please pay attention to your influence and quality. Zhang Fengjai's extravagant request made pansweating flash a look of embarrassment and dissatisfaction in her eyes, and she quickly kicked him as a reminder. 2 top-quality steaks cost more than 1,000, and the Philo from 1982 cost more than 10,000. The boss is already very interesting. Ignoring pansweating's reminder, Zhang Fengjai looked directly into Garcia's dark blue eyes, waiting for his answer. Sorry, we don't sell your Chinese liquor here. Facing Zhang Fengjai's gaze, Garcia, with a flash of displeasure in his eyes, bluntly rejected his excessive request, turned to Xiao Yi with a wink, and turned around to go back upstairs. But at this moment, 2 policemen in police uniforms opened the door and walked in. Who called the police just now? A young policewoman with a heroic appearance and stunning appearance asked seriously. When he saw the stunning-looking female police officer, Garcia's eyes immediately flashed with a look of surprise. Zhang Fengjai, who had been paying attention to Garcia, flashed a fierce murderous intent in his eyes, and tapped the table with the 5 fingers of his right hand, silently planning the opportunity and time to take action. It's me, Xiao Wei, who called the police just now, quickly raised her hand to signal. Who is eating the overlord meal here? After signaling to her colleagues behind her to record the case, the policewoman asked Xiao Wei. Facing the interrogation of the female police officer, Xiao Wei turned her eyes to Xiao Yi, and Xiao Yi's eyes went directly to Zhang Fengjai, which also caused the female police officer to also turn her eyes to Zhang Fengjai. Zhang Fengjai, when she saw Zhang Fengjai sitting elegantly near the windowsill, tapping her fingers on the table, the policewoman couldn't help but shout in surprise. Who are you? Zhang Fengjai asked with a puzzled look in his eyes as his fingers suddenly stopped tapping on the table, and then turned to look at the heroic policewoman. After all, he knew very few police officers, and among the female surnames, the only one was Wang Danja, a traffic policeman. My surname is Huang and my name is Yiwen. I was originally a criminal police officer in the 2nd Criminal Police Team, but 3 days ago I was sent to Guanghe Police Station by Director Yang. Quickly walking up to Zhang Fengjai, Huang Yiwen took the initiative to introduce her origins in detail, which made Zhang Fengjai look at her even more confused. At 3 o'clock in the morning on August 11th of the lunar calendar, I happened to be on duty in the police station, so I saw something that Director Yang didn't want others to know, Huang Yiwen further explained. I understand, Zhang Fengjai said with sudden realization. With Yang Qiaoshan's cautious character, He absolutely did not want his colleagues in the police station to know about the supernatural things that happened that night. Then, facing Huang Yiwen, who witnessed the giant green python with her own eyes, transferring from the police station and criminal police team may be the only option. At the same time, simply judging from Huang Yiwen's face, she is definitely not willing to stay at the grassroots police station. She still wants to return to the criminal police team that makes her blood boil, or she is willing to fight head-on with those criminals. So, he looked directly at Huang Yiwen and asked with a smile. "Officer Huang, do you want me to beg Director Yang and let you return to the criminal police team?" "That's right." Zhang Fengjai could directly guess his own thoughts, which shocked Huang Yiwen, and nodded quickly. After carefully observing Huang Yiwen's face again, I found that her 3 palaces of fortune, wealth, and fortune were faintly glowing, indicating that she was a very lucky person. At the same time, the life palace between the eyebrows shows purple energy coming from the east, which means that the other person will be favored by fate for a long time in the future, and family, career, and love will be very smooth. If this kind of luck from the east can be used in the criminal police team's handling and solving of cases, there will often be unexpected gains. More importantly, he has to fulfill his promise to help Yang Guo's Hung deal with 2 more difficult cases that may even involve supernatural phenomena. He needs a lucky helper like Huang Yiwen, so he has decided to help the other party back to the criminal police team. But before agreeing to Huang Yiwen, he still needs to test the other party's vision and execution. "Officer Huang, I can promise to help you return to the criminal police team too, but you need to help me do something now." "Please say," Huang Yiwen excitedly gestured immediately. "Go to the supermarket outside and buy me a box of high-proof liquor." Taking out 3 red tickets from his pocket and putting them on the table, Zhang Fengjai smiled and ordered. "No problem." Nodding without hesitation, Huang Yiwen directly picked up the 3 red tickets on the table, then turned around and left the Western restaurant and went straight to the supermarket. This also made her colleagues, the staff in the Western restaurant, and Pan Switing feel very incredible. After all, Zhang Fengjai is just an ordinary person in ordinary clothes, and Huang Yiwen, who has the power of law enforcement, does not need to flatter the other party so much. The only one who did not feel strange, or felt very normal, Garcia, said to another police officer with an apologetic tone. "Officer, I'm so sorry. We have already privately mediated the conflict just now. Please make an extra trip for me." "It's okay." After putting away the notebook that recorded the case, the male police officer waved his hand. "As long as you operate legally, your business is booming and you don't cause trouble, it is the greatest support for our work. It is worth it for us to make a few unnecessary trips." The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 302. Milo Sunshine Western Restaurant. "Zai, help me take good care of the 2 police officers." After turning to the waitress named Zai and giving instructions, Garcia quietly winked at Xiao Ei and then walked towards the stairs leading to the 2nd floor. At this moment, Huang Yiwen returned to the Western restaurant with a box of 53-degree Yotai rice wine, placed it at Zhang Fengjai's feet, and placed the receipt for the wine purchase and the remaining 73 yuan on the table. "Since I can buy liquor without hesitation, I can also carry out some seemingly unbelievable supernatural cases. If you can think of keeping the receipt for buying the wine and returning the remaining money for the wine, you can help yourself share the tasks of feng shui layout and simple spells." Therefore, after nodding with satisfaction, Zhang Fengjai ordered with a smile. "At 2:30 in the afternoon, you wait for me at the door of the police station. I will take you to see Director Yang. I will definitely wait for you at the police station door on time." After Huang Yiwen excitedly saluted and promised, she turned around and walked to her colleagues, and then asked about the status of the case investigation. After learning that the owner of the Western restaurant and Zhang Fengjai had reached private mediation, he left the Western restaurant with his colleagues. At this moment, Xiao Min came from the kitchen carrying 2 silver plates, and behind her was a foreign chef carrying red wine. I don't need it. Seeing the foreign chef in a white coat, after pouring red wine for Panswitting, he pointed the mouth of the bottle towards his own cup and was about to pour the wine. Zhang Fengjai quickly stopped him and at the same time reached out and took out a bottle of rice wine bought by Huang Yiwen and signaled. I like drinking this. The foreign chef who put away the red wine flashed a contemptuous sneer in his eyes, put the red wine on the table, and then turned around and walked towards the kitchen. Zhang Fengjai felt a little unhappy because he was just out of habit, but he was laughed at with disdain. Then he flicked the rice bottle cap in his hand, hitting the opponent's feet directly, and at the same time, the bottle cap was bounced into the trash can next to him. Bang! Oops! The moment his calf was attacked by a sneak attack, the foreign chef fell directly to the ground. After screaming in pain, he found that his front teeth had been knocked out. He suddenly turned his head and glared at Zhang Fengjai, only to find that he was drinking the pungent rice wine. A look of doubt flashed in the eyes of the foreign chef. Then, with Xiaowai's help, he stood up and ran into the kitchen with his mouth covered. The taste is very average. A sharp knife cut off a piece of beef. After tasting it for a while, Zhang Fengjai shook his head and sighed in disappointment, then continued to eat beef and drink white wine. Zhang Fengjai's slightly vulgar dining and drinking of rice wine completely destroyed the wasteful atmosphere of the Western restaurant, which also made Panswitting lose interest in conversation. After eating a few simple bites of beef and drinking a glass of red wine, she stood up and left as proposed. In response, Zhang Fengjai, who had just finished drinking, waved his hand to signal her to leave first, and then continued to drink. However, what no one noticed was that while Zhang Fengjai was drinking liquor, he used a sharp knife to carve a charm under the dining table. After drinking all 6 bottles of rice wine, Zhang Fengjai closed the door and left the Western restaurant with a satisfied look. No wonder I have to be willing to drink red wine, it turns out he is our wine god. Xiaowai couldn't help but see Zhang Fengjai, who was not drunk at all, leaving the Western restaurant and then looking at the 6 high rice wine bottles placed on the dining table. Sighed. Xiao Min and the waiter at the counter also had surprised looks in their eyes. After leaving the Western restaurant, Zhang Fengjai took out his cell phone and took a look at it. He found that the time agreed with Huang Yiwen was less than an hour away, so he didn't bother to return to Yongsheng Group and walked directly to the police station. However, just as he was passing the municipal gymnasium, he unexpectedly saw Yang Guozheng standing at the intersection of the street with a gloomy face, smoking a cigarette vigorously on the bar street to the west of the gymnasium. The entire bar street was surrounded by police cordons on both sides. Since he saw Yang Guozheng in advance, there was no need to waste time on going to the police station, so Zhang Fengjai speeded up and walked towards the bar street, and at the same time used his spiritual power to start dispersing the remaining alcohol in his body to ensure his absolute sobriety. Director Yang, what happened? Zhang Fengjai asked Yang Guozheng while looking at the police officers who were busy. Little friend Zhang, you came at the perfect time. Seeing Zhang Fengjai appear in front of him like a rain of time, Yang Guozheng dropped the cigarette in his hand, immediately grabbed his arm, and said with a very excited expression, Director Yang, calm down and tell me what kind of trouble you are in. Zhang Fengjai warned sternly after shaking Yang Guozheng's hands away from his arms. After taking a deep breath and trying his best to calm down the excitement in his heart, Yang Guozheng reached out and raised the warning line to signal. Little friend Zhang, let's talk while walking. While walking towards the busy police officers, Yang Guozheng introduced the case in detail. At 11 o'clock this morning, the 2nd Criminal Police Team received a case transferred from Guhui Police Station, saying that a young female body was found on Yumen Road north of the city gymnasium, which is also a bar street. The 2nd Criminal Police Team, the team's new captain, Fang Zemming, led the team to check. After the forensic examination, it was found that the cause of death of the female corpse was excessive blood loss in a short period of time, and there were only 2 unknown beast teeth wounds on the neck. Since the female corpse had no clothes on her body, her true identity could not be confirmed, so Captain Fang led people to check the surrounding environment to see if they could find the missing clothes and identity clues of the female corpse. However, they found a large number of female corpses without clothes in the sewer next to the brilliant bar. Suddenly stopping, looking at the 13 corpses covered with white cloth in 2 rows, Zhang Fengjai walked directly to the corpse at the edge, then bent over and lifted the white cloth covering her. Although she is not the top beauty, her handsome facial features, slightly pointed chin, and perfectly proportioned figure are definitely a big beauty with a high rate of turning heads of more than 90%. The index finger and middle finger of the right hand are intertwined, and then pressed on the right side of the girl's neck, carefully observing the 2 wounds similar to beast teeth. The wound perfectly reached the girl's artery, ensuring that blood would flow out instantly. It could also cause the girl to die from excessive blood loss in a very short time, just like the vampires in TV shows. However, Chinese zombies, fang snakes and cat demons also like to use this method to suck the blood of their prey. Therefore, Zhang Fengjai did not rush to make a judgment, but mobilized the spiritual power of Danshan to open the sky eye and carefully observe the remaining breath of the wound. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 303. Bar Street. It is neither the corpse aura of zombies nor the evil aura of snakes and cat demons. Instead, it is a cold and weird aura. At the same time, he was also exposed to this kind of atmosphere in the box of Dehao Entertainment City some time ago. He stood up and walked to the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th corpses, and also used his eyes to observe the remaining breath of the wounds. Zhang Fengjai, who finally made up his mind, stood up and returned to Yang Guo's Hung to give instructions. Director Yang, on the commercial street opposite Xin Tang building, there is a Western restaurant called Milo Sunshine. Could you please secretly investigate the opening time of that Western restaurant and check the surrounding surveillance within a month? See if the murdered girl has been in or out of the Western restaurant. New. Without questioning the reason for investigating Milo's Sunshine Western restaurant, Yang Guo's Hung directly called a colleague who had followed him, and then arranged the things Zhang Fengjai had just ordered. After exiting the bar street and standing on a stone platform about 1 meter high next to it, Zhang Fengjai carefully observed the feng shui of the bar street and couldn't help but frown. Originally, the location of Bar Street was adjacent to the municipal gymnasium to the south, 2 high-end residential areas to the north, Hualien supermarket to the east, and a nursing school with many beauties to the west, forming a feng shui treasure land for gathering wealth. But whoever paid attention, the wall of the nursing school on the west side was dug out and a cement road about 3 meters wide was laid. Not only does it destroy the effect of the feng shui treasure place to gather wealth from all directions, but it also causes the overly strong yin energy in the nursing school to flow back, eventually forming a place filled with yin energy, death energy, evil energy, resentment, and blood energy. The 5 evil lands can not only greatly stimulate people's primitive instincts, but also affect their sanity. Perhaps this is the fundamental reason why a large number of female corpses are buried in the sewers but have never been discovered. After jumping off the stone platform, Zhang Fengjai continued to give instructions to Yang Guo's Hung, who was also following him. Director Yang, please send someone to investigate who built the cement road at the nursing school and when it was built. When Yang Guo's Hung arranged for his colleagues to investigate the people who built the cement road, Zhang Fengjai began to use his eyes to observe all the KTVs, bars, and leisure clubs on the bar street, and trace the places where the 5 evil spirits were the strongest. Finally, he stopped in front of a bar called Romantic City, and then walked to the door of the bar. However, around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it was the time when the bar closed, so the door of the bar was locked tightly. Xiao Wang, Contact a locksmith. Seeing Zhang Fengjai intending to enter the bar, Yang Guozheng immediately ordered a colleague from the 2nd Criminal Police Team. No. After turning around to stop Yang Guozheng from asking for the locksmith's arrangement, he directly raised his leg and kicked open the bar door. Immediately afterwards, from the bar that had been kicked away, a chilly atmosphere rushed out that made people feel hot and at the same time could not help but shiver. With the 5 evil spirits transforming into the wind, and the sanity falling into the devil, even a good person reincarnated in 10 lives will probably become a bad person who commits all kinds of evil. After using the wind of his palm to disperse the 5 evil spirits that emerged from the bar, Zhang Fengjai muttered to himself with a gloomy face, then turned to give instructions to Yang Guozheng. Director Yang, send someone to arrest the owner and the guy in the bar immediately. Are they the murderers of those girls? Yang Guozheng asked excitedly. Immediately. If the owner and waiter in the bar are murderers, then he can not only avenge the dead girls, but also eliminate the negative impact of the murder of the female corpse in the shortest time, thus giving bureau leaders and city leaders make a lasting impression. This can not only consolidate the current position, but also accumulate capital for further advancement in the future. No, the murderer of those girls is most likely not human. Zhang Fengjai shook his head directly to deny Yang Guozheng's speculation. Then why do you want to arrest the owner and the guys in the bar? Yang Guozheng asked in confusion. Because the crimes they committed are no less than the murderers of those girls. After explaining with a cold light flashing in Zhang Fengjai's eyes, he stepped directly into the bar. The number of girl corpses excavated from the sewers has reached 13. Their murderers may have committed heinous crimes. The crimes committed by the bar owner and the guys were no worse than the murderers of those girls. This made Yang Guozheng immediately realize the seriousness of the problem, and at the same time, endless anger suddenly emerged in his heart. Then, he immediately turned around and shouted to Fang Zemming, who was arranging the excavation work. Fang Zemming, come here. Director Yang Fang Zemming, who ran quickly, said respectfully. Immediately mobilize all the members of the 1st and 2nd Criminal Police Teams and follow me into the bar to arrest people. Yes. After saluting and obeying the order, Fang Zemming immediately went to summon his colleagues who were investigating around the street. After stepping into the bar, in addition to the strong and pungent smell of mixed alcohol, there was also a faint smell of blood. Following the smell of alcohol and blood, Zhang Fengjai walked towards the bartending counter, and behind the counter, he saw a girl with lotus tattoos on her arms, big earrings on her ears, and colorful hair. He was sleeping on the blanket behind the counter. The strong and pungent smell of mixed alcohol and the faint smell of blood all emanated from this girl's body. Well. Looking at the young and ignorant girl who didn't care about her body at all, Zhang Fengjai couldn't help but sigh and turned his head to wave at Yang Guozheng, who rushed into the bar. Zhang Xiao, what's wrong? Signing Fang Zemming to lead the team to the dormitory behind the bar to arrest people, Yang Guozheng quickly ran to Zhang Fengjai. Pointing at the sleeping girl behind the counter, Zhang Fengjai was about to turn around and leave when Yang Guozheng suddenly changed his face and shouted. See you. Then, Yang Guozheng jumped inside with one hand supporting the counter, and then shook the girl hard and shouted. See you, hate until you return. When thinking of Yang Guozheng shouting the girl's name, Zhang Fengjai's mind immediately flashed by Juyi's longing. See you, wake up. But no matter how hard Yang Guozheng shook or how loudly he shouted, the girl named See you didn't wake up. Director Yang, don't waste your energy. Mix 5 different types of foreign liquor, plus red wine mixed with drugs. Even if you shout until your throat is broken, she won't wake up. Seeing Yang Guozheng doing useless work, Zhang Fengjai couldn't help but remind him. Zhang Fengjai detailed the reasons why Si Yu couldn't wake up, which made Yang Guozheng immediately think of the various magical methods he had, and he quickly stood up and asked. Friend Zhang, I know you must have a way to make Si Yu wake up quickly. Please let her wake up now. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 304. In a bar in the romantic city. Carry her out. Since he could call out the girl's name directly and didn't hide his concern, it meant that Yang Guozheng not only knew her, but also that they might have an extraordinary relationship, so Zhang Fengjai nodded and agreed to his request. He motioned Yang Guozheng to lay Siyu flat on a sofa in the bar, then took out 3 silver needles from his sleeves and pierced them into her Zhangmen, Taiyang, and Tiantu acupoints, and then used the silver needles to seal the acupoints to accelerate the elimination of the alcohol and drug effects in her body. When Siyu's long eyelashes began to tremble, Zhang Fengjai quickly retracted the 3 silver needles that had pierced the acupoints, and then turned around and planned to leave. Siyu, I remember you went to study in the United States. When did you come back? Why didn't you come to visit your uncle Yang? Seeing Siyu slowly opening her eyes, Yang Guozheng hurried forward to ask. Seeing Yang Guozheng squatting in front of him, a trace of panic flashed in Siyu's eyes, and she wanted to struggle to get up and leave the sofa. But the sudden severe cramps in her abdomen made her curl up with her hands on her stomach, and a lot of sweat appeared on her forehead. Zhang Xiao, come and see what happened to Siyu. Siyu's sudden curling up with her hands on her stomach scared Yang Guozheng, and he quickly turned his head and shouted to Zhang Fengjai, who was walking towards the dance floor. Turning his head to look at Siyu curled up on the sofa, watching her pale face sweating continuously, Zhang Fengjai did not go forward to check, but just said indifferently. Director Yang, don't worry, she just drank too much and took too much medicine when she was about to have sex, which eventually caused inflammation of the liver, cecum, and appendix. The pain will be fine for at most 10 minutes. Zhang Xiao, what is Tianqi? Yang Guozheng asked with a trace of doubt in his eyes. It is a process that young women have every month. Zhang Fengjai gave a helpless explanation, turned around and walked into the middle of the dance floor, then looked up at the colorful magic ball lights above his head, and his expression gradually became solemn. After Zhang Fengjai's explanation, Yang Guozheng quickly understood what was going on, and his face suddenly became serious and asked. Siyu, tell me, what is going on? Uncle Yang, Ignoring Yang Guozheng and Siyu who were talking, Zhang Fengjai turned his head and looked at the passage leading to the back of the bar. While the police who rushed into the passage to arrest people had not returned, he took 9 steps back and took out a talisman from his sleeve. He used his spiritual power to drive the talisman to self-ignite, and then threw the talisman flame directly at the magic ball lamp above the dance floor. Then, 5 terrifying screams that made people feel creepy and even hysterical rang out in the bar. Along with the 5 hysterical screams, 5 different colors of gas suddenly emerged from the colorful magic ball lamp, and then rushed towards Zhang Fengjai frantically. At this time, in the eyes of Yang Guozheng and Siyu, 5 kinds of gas rushed out of the magic ball lamp. At this moment, under Zhang Fengjai's heavenly eyes, the 5 kinds of gas that rushed over frantically were actually 5 evil-looking ghosts. The sky and the earth are boundless, and the universe is sealed. Facing the 5 evil spirits rushing over with their fangs and claws, Zhang Fengjai immediately took out a blank talisman paper from his sleeve and threw it directly at the evil spirits. At the same time, his 10 fingers quickly printed the condensed mark directly on the blank talisman paper. The blank talisman paper with the mark immediately generated a suction force, forcibly sucking the 5 evil spirits rushing over into the talisman paper, and then the slightly dim talisman paper quickly turned colorful. After reaching out to take back the colorful talisman paper, Zhang Fengjai used his spiritual power to wrap the talisman paper again and put it into his sleeve. Then, he continued to look up at the magic ball lamp on the top of the dance floor, with a hint of doubt in his eyes. At this moment, more than 20 criminal police who had just rushed into the back of the bar appeared in the bar, escorting 6 disheveled burly men and a beautiful woman in a bathrobe. Director Yang, why are you arresting me? What crime have I committed? When the charming woman in a bathrobe saw Yang Guozheng standing next to the sofa in the bar, she immediately struggled and asked loudly. Yi Yanhong, if we don't have evidence of your crime, do we dare to arrest you knowingly and breaking the law? While Yang Guozheng responded to the charming woman's questioning with a serious look, he couldn't help but glance at Zhang Fengjai. Because he risked rushing into the bar to arrest people, he believed in Zhang Fengjai's judgment. If there was no ironclad evidence in the end, Yu Yanhong's counterattack would be quite fierce. After all, to own such a luxurious bar in the prime location of the bar street, Yu Yanhong's background in both black and white is also quite complicated. I want evidence. After asking Yu Yanhong with a sneer, Zhang Fengjai walked to a wall on the west side of the bar with his hands behind his back. Take a deep breath, clench his right hand into a fist and slam it against the wall. Boom! Accompanied by a violent roar, the reinforced concrete wall was directly blown through, revealing a passage behind the wall leading to the underground. When seeing the passage behind the wall, Yu Yanhong, who was originally arrogant, and the 6 strong men who were struggling desperately, suddenly fell to the ground with a look of death, and their eyes showed despair. When seeing the artificial concrete steps, Yang Guozheng, with a flash of excitement in his eyes, immediately accelerated and rushed into the passage. Fang Zeming left 5 colleagues to guard Yu Yanhong and others, and then rushed into the passage with the rest of his colleagues. Ignoring Yang Guozheng and others who rushed into the passage, Zhang Fengjai walked towards the stairs with his hands behind his back, and then went to the 2nd floor of the bar. Compared with the spacious and bright lobby on the 1st floor, the 2nd floor, which was divided into more than 20 small private rooms, was not only crowded, but also dim and humid. He walked to the first small private room and pushed open the wooden door of the private room. Looking at the only single bed in the private room, Zhang Fengjai, who had a flash of enlightenment in his eyes, immediately guessed what these isolated small private rooms were used for. With a flash of helplessness in his eyes, he shook his head and continued to follow the narrow passage, pushing open the wooden doors of one private room after another, and finally saw a girl curled up at the head of the bed in the private room marked number 18, with disheveled hair and dirty face. After hearing the sound of the door opening, the girl lay down on the bed with a numb expression, closed her empty eyes without a trace of life, and then gestured to Zhang Fengjai, who was standing at the door of the private room. Come on. A natural 5 evils container, with 50% to 60% of the talent to condense the evil pill, but suffered such inhuman torture. Looking at the girl lying flat on the wooden bed with her eyes closed, Zhang Fengjai sighed with a complicated look in his eyes. It seems that God is forcing you to fall into the devil's way. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 305. In the bar of the romantic city. Not only did the imagined physical torture not come, but she heard some inexplicable charlatan theory, which made the girl open her eyes and then looked up at the thin boy standing at the door of the private room, with a trace of doubt in her empty eyes. Sitting directly on the bed, Zhang Fengjai used his spiritual power to continuously condense 18 kinds of weapons, proving that he also had supernatural powers, and looked directly into the girl's empty eyes and asked, "Girl, if I can give you the same supernatural power, what do you want to do most now?" "I kill all the men in the world." Strong hatred immediately emerged in the empty eyes, and the girl replied with gritted teeth. However, when she saw the thin boy who also had supernatural powers and was willing to help her, the girl quickly changed her words. "All men except my big brother." The girl's reply full of hatred did not surprise Zhang Fengjai, and he continued to ask in a gentle tone. "Girl, if I can help you escape from the sea of suffering and give you supernatural powers, but the only requirement is that you completely let go of the hatred in your heart and choose to return to a normal life, I wonder if you agree." When she heard the choice given by Zhang Fengjai, the hatred in the girl's eyes was gradually replaced by thinking, and then she stood up and hugged her knees and fell into deep thought. Being able to consider the choice she proposed showed that the girl had not completely lost the last trace of conscience, which made Zhang Fengjai's eyes flash with a trace of relief, and he waited patiently for her to make the final choice. But at this time, he couldn't help frowning. Because he vaguely heard panicked cries for help from the first floor of the bar, and the voice of Yang Guosheng scolding. Because he heard Yang Guoshen's scolding, Zhang Fengjai was worried that he would encounter unexpected dangers, so he stood up and told the girl. Girl, when you make the final choice, you can go to the counter of the bar on the first floor to find me. Then, he turned around and left the private room. Looking up at Zhang Fengjai who had left the room, the girl reached out from the pillowcase and took out a photo of two identical little girls, with a hint of tenderness in her eyes. After leaving the room, Zhang Fengjai walked down the stairs to the first floor, and unexpectedly saw the 6 strong men and Yu Yanhong who were originally escorted, slowly approaching the door of the bar. Yang Guosheng and others who rushed into the passage to the basement, pointed their guns at Yu Yanhong and others with nervousness and fear in their eyes. The reason why Yang Guosheng and others were afraid was that Ziyu, who was supposed to be lying on the sofa, was being pointed at the temple by a strong man, and was being dragged by another strong man with his arm around his neck to the door of the bar. Little friend Zhang, please save Ziyu, Yang Guosheng immediately asked in surprise when he saw Zhang Fengjai coming down the stairs. Seeing the thin boy who could directly smash the reinforced concrete into a wall with one punch, Yu Yanhong's face suddenly changed and he immediately ordered. Kill him for me. After hearing Yu Yanhong's order, the 4 strong men around her immediately took out their guns and started shooting. Bang, bang, bang. Accompanied by more than a dozen harsh gunshots, more than a dozen bullets were like burning fireballs, shooting at Zhang Fengjai at a speed as fast as the wind. Facing the fast-shooting bullets, Zhang Fengjai neither dodged nor stopped. But he raised his right hand with a calm expression, and pressed his thumb on his middle finger, and then bounced the 16 bullets back one by one like a glass ball, and directly shot the 6 strong men's eyebrows and hearts. Zhang Fengjai's Superman-like behavior of being able to directly bounce bullets with one hand not only stunned the 20 or so criminal police at the scene, but also made Ziyu's cold eyes show a strange look. As for the culprit Yu Yanli, she was directly scared and fell to the ground. Yang Guosheng, the only one who knew that Zhang Fengjai would use bullets to kill his opponent, immediately rushed to Ziyu and shouted at his stunned colleagues. Control her immediately and escort her to the criminal police team. After the 2 criminal police escorted Yu Yanhong out of the bar, Yang Guosheng helped Ziyu walk to Zhang Fengjai and said with great excitement. Thank you, Zhang Xiao. Director Yang, there is no need to be so polite between you and me. After waving his hand to indicate that Yang Guosheng did not need to thank him, Zhang Fengjai looked at the passage he had blasted out and asked with a hint of pity. Director Yang, what did you find? Damn Yu Yanhong, she not only secretly trafficked drugs, but also cruelly imprisoned 9 girls for illegal transactions. This time she must be shot. Hearing Zhang Fengjai asking about the discovery of the basement, Yang Guoshen's eyes immediately blazed and he gritted his teeth as he introduced. Chief Yang, mobilize more police forces and thoroughly check all the bars on this street. I'm afraid there will be something that will make you even more angry. After withdrawing his gaze from the basement, Zhang Fengjai reminded with a sneer. Why is this happening? In his more than 10 years of police career, he has seen too many vicious criminals. Whether it is a crime of passion or a premeditated crime, he can eventually find the root cause of their crimes. But through the discovery of the basement, combined with Yu Yanhong's identity and status, Yang Guosheng really couldn't understand why she was so cruel. There are both natural disasters and man-made disasters. Zhang Fengjai walked to the counter, stretched out his hand to suck a few bottles of domestic liquor, and sighed while drinking. Could it be because of feng shui? When Zhang Fengjai mentioned the natural disaster, Yang Guosheng immediately thought of him asking him to investigate the cement road of the nursing school, and thought of the 7 of the 9 girls rescued just now who were students of the nursing school, and immediately guessed the target of the natural disaster. That's right. Perhaps the quality of the liquor was relatively poor, or perhaps it was a fake and shoddy fake liquor. After spitting out the liquor he had just drunk, Zhang Fengjai nodded to confirm and turned his head to Yang Guosheng and warned him. Director Yang, when you investigate the mastermind behind the construction of the cement road, don't act rashly for the time being. Let me go meet the opponent first. I know. After nodding in agreement, Yang Guozheng suddenly looked up at the direction of the stairs, with a look of doubt in his eyes. Zhang Fengjai also turned around and looked at the girl walking down the stairs, with a look of expectation in his eyes. I can agree to your terms, but I also have a request. The girl walked up to Zhang Fengjai, looked up and looked into his eyes. You say. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 306. In a bar in the romantic city. I can give up my inner resentment and live like a normal girl, but only if I personally kill the owner and thugs of this bar, as well as the human traffickers who abducted me, the girl said through gritted teeth. Presumptuous. In front of him, the deputy chief of the police station, he had the audacity to decide the life and death of others at will. The request made by the girl just now made Yang Guozheng feel that his dignity was being challenged, and he couldn't help but yelled angrily. In response, Zhang Fengjai glared sharply at Yang Guozheng, then pointed at the 6 corpses that had not yet been dealt with. The thug in this bar was killed by me just now, and the bar owner cannot escape the death penalty that the law finally sentenced her to, so I can no longer satisfy your request. Turning her head to look at the 6 strong men whose eyebrows and hearts had been pierced by bullets, the girl immediately rushed forward with strong hatred in her eyes, and then kicked and grabbed her hands to vent her anger. Directly reaching out to grab Yang Guozheng, who was about to stop him, Zhang Fengjai shook his head and reminded. They are all dead anyway, so just let her do whatever she wants. After struggling for more than 10 minutes, the girl suddenly fell to the ground hoarse and cried bitterly. He stepped in front of the girl and reached out to help her up. Zhang Fengjai wiped her tears and said with a gentle expression. As for the human traffickers who abducted you, when you have supernatural abilities, I will teach you a secret method of killing people from a distance, so that you can kill your enemies with your own hands. Not only did he agree to the girl's request for private revenge, but he also personally taught her the ability to kill. Zhang Fengjai's actions just now made Yang Guozheng frown and wanted to persuade him, but he was stopped by the thinking man beside him. Yu shook his head to stop. Brother, why are you helping me? Looking up at Zhang Fengjai, who was arranging her hair, the girl asked with a puzzled expression after a hint of tenderness flashed in her eyes. After all, they are still strangers who are neither relatives nor friends, and the other party has no reason to help them at all. Moreover, the reason for helping is to give him supernatural abilities that are envied by countless people. Good karma. Facing the girl's question, Zhang Fengjai gave an answer that puzzled her, Yang Guozheng and Siyu. In fact, when he just observed the feng shui of the bar street and discovered that the original place for collecting treasures had turned into a place for the 5 evils, he knew that the place with the strong 5 evils atmosphere in the bar must have a container that could gather the energy of the 5 evils. Otherwise, the unfettered 5 evil energy would have destroyed hundreds of thousands of creatures within a radius of 10 miles. That's why he forced his way into a bar in the romantic city, and used the sword skills of Tiandi Wuji to seal the energy of the 5 evil spirits, which was like a wraith, to prevent the 5 evil energy from accidentally losing its restraints and causing irreparable heavy losses. At the same time, using sword skills and talisman paper to seal nearly 99% of the 5 evil energy can be used as a powerful trump card that can destroy everything in one move, specifically to frighten the strong ones who are above the 7th level of foundation building. But when he was sealing the energy of the 5 evil spirits, he unexpectedly felt that the container that gathered the energy of the 5 evil spirits was actually a living person. This surprised him, and at the same time, he felt a desire to create a top evil cultivator in his heart. The impulse of the person. Of course, it cannot be said to be a temporary impulse. Because from the little black dog he rescued at the beginning, to the carefully cultivated thousand-legged blood centipede, to the arrangement for Zhang Huijing, who was in the realm of the beast ghost, to cultivate in the Yinquan of Mouse Mountain, to the time when he helped the little white snake with a special physique to consolidate the realm of the monster beast, in addition to his own kindness, in addition to his personality, he also has a very strong feeling. He always felt that the situation among the Taoist sects, demon clans, and evil cultivators in China was very delicate, with a kind of accumulation before the volcanic eruption, and a kind of depression that was about to come. Therefore, he wants to use some specific good deeds to gain a first-line advantage in facing complex situations in the future, or to have friends who can come to help him when he encounters danger in the future. What is good karma? The girl asked, even more puzzled. When you have supernatural abilities and experience in the world of mortals, you will understand what good karma I am talking about today, Zhang Fengjai reminded with a smile. There was a hint of shyness in the girl's eyes, and her face turned slightly red as she continued to raise her head and ask. Then when will you grant me supernatural powers? 12 o'clock at midnight is when the yin qi is at its peak. Zhang Fengjai solemnly gave the specific time. After nodding, the girl whispered her name, and then stood beside him silently. Big brother, my name is Lu Yui, and my nickname is Easy Eye. Easy Eye, come with me. Now that the hidden danger of the 5 evil spirits has been eliminated, the remaining female corpse case and the feng shui problem need to be waited for Yang Qiushan's final investigation results. Therefore, Zhang Fengjai planned to take Lu Yui back to Villa number 7 first, and let Xiao Yuxuan help her wash and change into clean clothes so that she could receive the sealed 5 evil energy at midnight. But at this moment, Xiao, who had been standing next to Yang Guozheng, suddenly stood in front of him and begged. Brother, I also want to be Superman, can you also give me superpowers? Yang Guozheng, who also hoped to obtain this ability, not only did not stop him, but looked at him with the same desire in his eyes. Although the lotus tattoo on her arm and the colorful dyed hair gave people a weird and alternative feeling, through her delicate facial features, perfectly proportioned body, and straight legs, Zhang Fengjai knew that Ziyu was definitely a top beauty who was not inferior to Sulitzi and Shen Loxi. However, after a flash of admiration, he shook his head indifferently and refused. I'm sorry, I don't have the ability to give you supernatural powers. What about her? Pointing at Lu Yui, Ziyu asked arrogantly. The indifferent look was instantly replaced by indifference, and Zhang Fengjai replied in a gradually cold tone. First, I don't know you, and I'm not familiar with you. I have no obligation or responsibility to help you gain supernatural powers. Second, Ezzy's chance to have supernatural powers is related to her own special physique and the inhuman torture she suffered. Of course, if you want to get Ezzy's chance, you must first endure the torture that Easy Eye has suffered. Perhaps because she was spoiled since childhood, the rebellious nature in her bones made Ziyu not know what fear is, so facing Zhang Fengjai's slightly inviting general, she immediately straightened her chest and challenged. As long as I can get supernatural powers, no matter how painful the torture is, I can endure it. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 307. In a bar in the romantic city. Seeing Ziyu, who didn't know how to advance or retreat, continue to challenge his patience, Zhang Fengjai knew that if he didn't let her feel real fear and despair, she would not easily give up the idea of obtaining supernatural powers. At the same time, Yang Qiushan's indifference also made him slightly dissatisfied. So, he quickly took out 2 silver needles to seal Lu Yui's acupuncture points, and asked with a slightly raised corner of his mouth. For 3 years, I was locked in a small private room. Not only did I not eat enough and sleep well every day, but I also had to endure corporal punishment from time to time. At the same time, when I was at the convenience of my body, I had to suffer humiliation from more than a dozen men every day. Can you bear such torture? When hearing Zhang Fenjai's story about the torture Lu Yui had suffered, even after being dressed up with heavy makeup, Siyo's face gradually turned pale, and a look of horror appeared in her eyes. Yang Guo's Hung, whose eyes gradually showed nameless anger, finally understood why Lu Yui asked to kill the bar owner, the thugs, and the human traffickers, and finally understood why Zhang Fenjai agreed to the other party's request that was obviously against the law. Ignoring Siyo's horrified look, Zhang Fenjai continued to question. If after suffering the above inhuman torture, I ask you to completely give up the resentment in your heart and the idea of revenge, are you willing to do it? Even after enduring the above inhuman torture, you only have a 1% chance of having a special physique and receiving supernatural powers at most. Are you willing to continue trying? Faced with Zhang Fenjai's continuous questioning, Siyo, whose face was as pale as paper, trembled slightly, and the fear in her eyes was completely replaced by fear. After reaching out to withdraw the silver needle that sealed Lu Yui's acupuncture points, Zhang Fenjai walked around Siyo and walked directly to the door of the bar. Lu Yui glanced at Siyo in confusion, and then hurriedly followed. However, when he left the bar and came to the street, he unexpectedly saw Huang Yiwen standing in front of the first female corpse. He immediately thought of the time he had agreed with the other party and apologized embarrassedly. "Officer Huang, I'm so sorry. I met Director Yang, who was handling an emergency case halfway, and forgot about us for a moment." However, before he finished his apology, he was interrupted by Huang Yiwen, who suddenly turned around and burst into tears. "Officer Huang, what's wrong with you?" "Zhang Fenjai, she is my college classmate and roommate, and also my best friend," Gu Yuna, pointing to the first female corpse whose white cloth was lifted, Huang Yiwen introduced with sorrow and tears. "Officer Huang, please accept my condolences. In fact, things like suffering a tragic disaster can be said to be destined, or it can be said to be self-inflicted. Although Gu Yuna is dead, through her face that has not completely disappeared, it can be seen that she is not a woman who keeps herself clean and likes to go to entertainment venues. If she could stay at home like Xiao Yuxuan, or have a decent job like Huang Yiwen, she might not have died tragically. Zhang Fenjai, I know you have extraordinary abilities. I beg you to find the murderer who killed Gina and let him be severely punished by law." Huang Yiwen suddenly reached out and grabbed Zhang Fenjai's arm, looking straight into his eyes and begging. "Officer Huang, don't worry, even if you don't beg me, I will never let the murderer who killed these girls go." After struggling to break free from Huang Yiwen's jade hand, Zhang Fenjai made a solemn promise. "Thank you. Thank you," Huang Yiwen nodded excitedly. Since Huang Yiwen has found a bar street, she will fulfill the promise she made to the other party, so Zhang Fenjai turned his head and shouted loudly at the bar. "Director Yang." Yang Guo's Hung, who was helping Siyo out of the bar, couldn't help but change his expression slightly when he saw Huang Yiwen with tears in her eyes. Just when he was about to criticize her, Zhang Fenjai stopped him directly. Then, he whispered in Huang Yiwen's ear that she had the luck of the purple air coming from the east, and the help in solving special cases, and patted his chest to guarantee that she would never reveal the secret of that night. Finally, after careful consideration, Yang Guo's Hung nodded and agreed to let Huang Yiwen return to the 2nd Criminal Police Team, and be responsible for contacting and cooperating with Zhang Fenjai. This also made Huang Yiwen temporarily forget the pain of losing her bestie and burst into laughter. After exchanging contact numbers, Zhang Fenjai took Lu Yui directly to Villa number 7 by taxi. Yang Guo's Hung directly contacted the leaders of the municipal bureau and asked to send more people to thoroughly check the bar street to see if the situation was a source of sin that harbored filth and dirt, as Zhang Fenjai introduced. Guanghe Huafu, in Villa number 7. Xiao Yuxuan, who had taken a temporary leave to rest at home, took Lu Yui to take a shower and change clothes, while Zhang Fenjai sat directly on the soft sofa and began to consider whether to inform Zhuang Jian about the case of the female corpse. Although the third grandfather looked down on the supernatural research institute that was corrupted by the vulgarity of the world, He really understood the impact of the Institute on secular forces and attached great importance to it. Based on the cold breath left by the wound on the neck of the female corpse, and combined with the tooth wounds on the necks of the two waitresses in the Western restaurant, he was basically sure that the murderer of the female corpse case was definitely the owner of the Western restaurant, Garcia. However, according to the powerful aura that Garcia accidentally exuded at that time, it was far better than the vampire Alex encountered in the Dahao Entertainment City, indicating that the opponent's strength has reached the foundation building realm. So, if you want to successfully capture Garcia, you must either use the trump card you just got, or you need to rely on the power of the Supernatural Research Institute. Considering that there are more than 4 months before New Year's Eve, he still needs those trump cards to prevent sudden changes, and finally decided to borrow the power of the Supernatural Research Institute to deal with Garcia. Thinking of this, he took out his mobile phone to find Zhuang Jian's number and called it directly. The phone rang for 8 times before Zhuang Jian answered the call. Afterwards, he told Zhuang Jian in detail about the discovery and speculation about the female corpse murder case, and specifically reminded her that Garcia was not only a Western vampire, but also had the strength of the foundation building realm. But in response to his detailed reminder, Zhuang Jian gave a helpless sigh after nearly a minute of silence, and then hung up the phone directly, which made Zhang Fengjai frown. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yanyun Yuqi. Chapter 308. Guanghe Huafu, in Villa Number 7. According to his understanding of Zhuang Jian's personality, when she learned about the seriousness of the female corpse case and faced the invasion and evil of Western alien vampires, she should immediately report to her superiors and then request support from the strong men in the foundation building realm. But what does the helpless sigh mean? Ezi is too tired and fell asleep while taking a bath, so I let her go to the guest room to rest first, and then try on the newly bought clothes for her after she wakes up. Just as Zhang Fengjai was guessing the reason for Zhuang Jian's helpless sigh, Xiao Yuxuan stood in front of the fence on the second floor and reminded her. The moment he looked up and saw Xiao Yuxuan, Zhang Fengjai suddenly thought of the first time he went to Ningji Normal College to check the cause of Zhou Jingying's accidental death, and questioned Zhuang Jian, as a college teacher, why she did not get rid of the black spider monster that killed Zhou Jingying in advance. And her reaction at the time was silence and helplessness, which made Zhang Fengjai gradually understand the reason for her helpless sigh just now. With Zhuang Jian's control over Ningji City, she probably knew the whole story of the case when the female corpse case just happened, and she also reported it to the leader of the Supernatural Research Institute and asked for support. But the leader's reply should be exactly the same as that of the black spider monster, telling her not to intervene and choose to turn a blind eye. Thinking of this, he suddenly understood why his third grandfather looked down on the Supernatural Research Institute, and his eyes immediately ignited with endless anger. After all, those girls who were sucked dry of blood are all children of China, and the blood of the descendants of Yan and Huang flows in their bodies. As a supernatural research institute with the ability of Taoist monks, it is obligated and responsible to arrest Garcia and avenge the girls who were killed. No matter what their reason is, turning a blind eye is the biggest dereliction of duty. Yezi, are you okay? Seeing Zhang Fengjai's face gradually gloomy, Xiao Yuxuan walked behind the sofa and greeted him with concern while massaging his temples. I'm fine. Take a deep breath, suppress the anger in his heart, shake his head to Xiao Yuxuan's signal, close his eyes and start thinking about which trump card he should use to deal with Garcia. It is necessary to defeat Garcia forcefully, but also to capture him alive without harming his life, so that he can accept the trial of Chinese law and give an explanation to the girls who were killed. Then, the life-saving trump cards given by the 3 elders and 5 predecessors cannot be used. Thinking that vampires are similar to evil spirits, and the source of power comes from the heart, he gradually has a plan and means to capture the other party alive in his mind. At this time, his mobile phone on the sofa suddenly vibrated. He picked up the phone and looked at the screen. When he found that the incoming call number was Yang Guo's Hung, he quickly answered it. Zhang Xiao, everything has been checked. Yang Guoshan's suppressed excitement came from the phone immediately. Director Yang, don't be in a hurry, tell us one thing at a time. Miro Sunshine is a Western restaurant that opened half a year ago. The owner, Garcia, is a noble from the undying empire. At the same time, after the forensic examination, it was found that the time of death of the first murdered girl was when the Western restaurant opened. Moreover, through the built-in large-capacity camera in an internet cafe next to the Western restaurant, we found that all the murdered girls not only entered the Western restaurant, but also never left the Western restaurant. So, I dare to conclude 100% that the suspect in the female corpse murder case is the owner of the Western restaurant, Garcia. Whether it is the use of Taoist magic to check or the pursuit of modern technology, all the targets are directed at Garcia, so there is no need to continue waiting, so Zhang Fengjai immediately decided to take action tonight. Chief Yang, be on call at any time and wait for my call. No problem. After agreeing excitedly, Yang Guo's Hung continued to talk about the second matter of the investigation, which was who pushed down the wall of the nursing school and then paved the cement road, which eventually caused the Bar Street to change from a feng shui treasure land that gathered wealth to a 5 evil places that were the source of sin. Chen Dingyang, chairman of the Kowloon Group. When Zhang Fengjai heard that the black hand behind the scenes was the Kowloon Group again, he immediately thought of the evil cultivator surnamed Wu who arranged the 5-bead condensed vein feng shui formation, and ordered Yang Guo's Hung with a cold light in his eyes. Chief Yang, the feng shui layout involves feudal superstition. Your police station should not intervene in this matter for the time being to avoid bringing bad influence. Okay, but I need to know the ins and outs of the matter afterwards. While nodding and agreeing to Zhang Fengjai's request, Yang Guo's Hung also put forward his own conditions. No problem. After nodding and agreeing to Yang Guoshan's request, Zhang Fengjai hung up the phone and looked outside the door. He found that the sky had just darkened, and turned his head to Xiao Yuxuan's instructions. Yuxuan, go make me some food. I'll go right away. When Xiao Yuxuan turned and went straight to the kitchen to cook, he took out about 10 pieces of old talisman paper from his sleeve, and then selected a talisman paper with a thunderous aura and placed it alone on the coffee table. Then, he took out 2 blank talisman papers from his sleeve, cut his fingers and forced out 2 drops of blood, and then drew a sealing talisman and a breaking evil talisman with his own blood. Then, he put the 3 talismans separately in his coat pocket, and then closed his eyes and began to regulate his breathing. When it was 9 o'clock in the evening, he left the villa and took a taxi to the Milo Sunshine Western restaurant on Jianxi Road. However, when the taxi was less than 100 meters away from the Milo Sunshine Western restaurant, Zhang Fengjai, who was sitting in the co-pilot seat, couldn't help frowning. Because just now, the monitoring talisman he had reserved under the table of the Western restaurant suddenly burned automatically, which meant that Garcia had completed the transformation of a vampire in the restaurant, causing the leaked evil breath to trigger the talisman. Fortunately, the flame of the talisman will not ignite objects such as furniture without the control of the mind, and will not cause a fire. So, he immediately mobilized the Danshan spiritual power to open the sky eye. While tracking the remaining evil breath of Garcia, he took out 5 red tickets and instructed the taxi driver. Master, speed up and listen to my command. Okay. After putting away the 5 red tickets excitedly, the taxi driver immediately stepped on the accelerator and started to speed up. Turn left. According to the evil aura lingering in the air, Zhang Fengjai began to instruct the taxi driver to keep changing directions. Keep turning left. Turn right. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 309. After nearly 15 minutes of speeding, the taxi finally stopped in front of a town village with 2 or 3-story buildings. "Master, where is this?" Zhang Fengjai frowned and asked, looking at the slightly messy building layout, the resentment and evil spirits in front of him. "Young man, this is Sangguo village at the junction of the high-tech zone and Renchange district. Like Miaoying and Xieying next to the station, they are all town villages rented by migrant workers." The taxi driver who slowed down and stopped just took a look and told the detailed origin and characteristics of the village in front of him, which also made Zhang Fengjai immediately guess why Garcia flew to Sangguo village. Because Pan Switting, who had just graduated from college and came from a remote rural area, rented a house right in Sangguo village. Moreover, according to the naked greed and desire in Garcia's eyes when he looked at her in the Western restaurant of Milo Sunshine at noon today, the target must be Pan Switting, who still had Yuanyan and remained a virgin. "Master, thank you." After a polite thank you, Zhang Fengjai hurriedly opened the door and got out of the car. But just as he closed the door, the taxi driver suddenly accelerated and turned around to leave, and the car body almost hit him. Looking at the speeding taxi, he knew why the other party was so anxious to leave after a little thought. It might be related to the 5 red bills he had just thrown to the other party. In response, Zhang Fengjai just smiled bitterly and shook his head. Because when he took out the 5 red bills and asked the taxi driver to speed up, he didn't think of asking for the remaining money. The other party did this completely by judging others by his own meanness. Without paying too much attention to the taxi driver's thoughts and actions, he continued to use the sky eye to track Garcia's remaining evil aura, and rushed into the village with the Qingfeng step, and finally stopped in front of a slightly dilapidated 2-story building. Because Garcia's remaining evil aura disappeared in the building in front of him, he took a deep breath, mobilized the spiritual power of Danshan to bless himself, and then gently pushed his right foot hard, directly flew more than 7 meters into the air and slowly landed on the roof. At this time, in the room on the east side of the 2nd floor near the stairs, Garcia, who was wearing a black tuxedo and looked very gentlemanly, walked out of the room with 2 girls in pajamas in his left and right arms. Although the 2 girls' long hair covered their faces, Zhang Fengjai recognized the girl in his right arm as Pan Switting through her slender legs and thin waist. After leaving the rented room, Garcia suddenly stretched out a pair of huge flesh wings about 2 meters long from his back shoulders, and then flapped the flesh wings hard to fly into the air, intending to return to the old nest of the Western restaurant. With the speed of vampires flying at high altitudes and sucking blood, if he successfully took Pan Switting and another girl back to the old nest, then by the time he took a taxi back to the Western restaurant, I am afraid that Pan Switting and another girl would have become 2 cold female corpses. Therefore, without caring whether it would affect the tenants renting houses nearby, Zhang Fengjai immediately mobilized the sharp sword condensed by the spiritual power of Danshan and threw it directly into the air, and then shouted softly, and his 10 fingers quickly condensed into a sword spell. The sky and the earth are boundless, and the universe borrows the law. After adjusting the direction of flight in the air, Garcia was about to speed back to the nest, and then enjoy the blood of 2 beautiful women who maintain the body of Yuanyan, when a trace of vigilance suddenly emerged in his heart, making him instinctively retreat and immediately look down. Then, he saw a sharp sword exuding a mysterious aura, piercing his flesh wings like a gust of wind. After a trace of solemnity flashed in his eyes, he opened his mouth and spit out a ball of black air, directly facing the stabbing sword. Bang! Accompanied by a slight collision sound, although the black air was pierced by the sharp sword exuding a mysterious aura was also knocked away. At this time, Garcia saw the opponent who had just driven the sharp sword to attack. At this moment, an unknown anger immediately emerged in his heart. Because the opponent who just drove the sword to attack secretly was the young man who made trouble in the Western restaurant at noon. At the beginning, facing the young man who was obviously looking for trouble, The reason why he did not turn his face and chose to tolerate and apologize was that he did not want to attract the attention and intervention of the Chinese law enforcement agencies, and then affect his hunting tonight. But what he never expected was that the object of tolerance and apology was not only the mysterious Taoist monks in China, but also secretly attacked and destroyed his carefully planned hunting operation. If he had known that this result would be, he should have taken advantage of the opportunity of no customers at noon to directly kill the Taoist monks in front of him, and then catch the girl who maintained the Yuanyan body, so there would be no need to hunt in the middle of the night. Although he found another girl who also maintained the Yuanyan body during the hunting process this time, compared with the danger of exposing his vampire identity, he was still willing to live cautiously in the dark. After all, China, with a large population, is their paradise for vampires, with inexhaustible blood food. Garcia, put down those two girls obediently, and I will temporarily spare your life today. When Zhang Fengjai reached out to call back the sharp sword condensed with spiritual power, he took out the lightning spell from his shirt pocket, and then posed as a strong man and said, "Haha." The ordinary dark magic cast in a hurry directly repelled the opponent's carefully prepared sword attack, which made Garcia see through Zhang Fengjai's strength and found that he was not his opponent at all. So, when he heard Zhang Fengjai's reckless provocation, he sneered twice and rushed down with his flesh wings flapping quickly. The sky and the earth are boundless, Qiankan swordsmanship. The thunder power brought by the spell is a targeted destructive attack. If Garcia did not let go of Panswitting and the girl, the physique of ordinary people would make them fall directly under the thunder attack. In desperation, he could only use the means of overdrawing Danshan's spiritual power and the infinite swordsmanship to force Garcia to let go of the two girls. The sword rushed into the air again, quickly split into 16 swords, and then stabbed Garcia's heart, the source of power, and the pair of flesh wings that gave him the ability to fly. Seeing the sharp sword stabbing at him as fast as the wind, not only did it instantly split into 16 identical swords, but the mysterious aura contained in each sword did not diminish at all, which made Garcia's face change. Zhang Fengjai was worried that the thunder power brought by the spell would accidentally kill the two girls, and Garcia was even more worried that the sword stabbing at the flesh wings would accidentally hurt the exquisite prey he had chosen with great difficulty. So, a pair of flesh wings suddenly flapped hard and soared into the sky. After successfully avoiding the encirclement of 16 sharp swords, Garcia quickly landed on the roof of another building. Then, he gently put the two girls on the ground, and then flapped his flesh wings and rushed towards Zhang Fengjai. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 310. Sangguo Village. The weather after the Mid-Autumn Festival is swelteringly hot during the day, but humid and cold at night. At the same time, the cement floor's ability to absorb heat and cool quickly has also made the ground on the roof of the building already cold. So, just as Garcia put the two girls in thin pajamas on the cement floor, the cold and wet stimulation woke them up from their coma. Fortunately, Panswitting, who had experienced the harm of resentful spirits, immediately realized what had happened to her when she saw Zhang Fengjai wielding 16 swords against a monster with a pair of huge flesh wings. Therefore, she quickly stretched out her hand to cover her best friend who wanted to shout for help, and then reminded her very quietly. "Wan Ran, don't be afraid, a friend of mine is saving us." After hearing Panswitting's reminder, the girl known as Wan Ran quickly looked up and immediately saw a thin young man standing on the top of the building, controlling 16 swords with white light in both hands, fighting a man with flesh wings. Monster. As the saying goes, the moon on the 15th day is 16 round. With the help of the bright moonlight, Wan Ran, whose eyesight was already excellent, was able to clearly see the appearance and temperament of the thin boy. Although her appearance is relatively ordinary, her calm and unhurried temperament, her aura of fighting monsters, and her coolness and indifference with her clothes fluttering in the breeze directly opened the door to her frozen feelings, allowing her to see Xiang Xiang, a thin boy. There was a strange look in his eyes. Seeing that Garcia actually took the initiative to put down the two girls who made him feel afraid, a look of surprise flashed in Zhang Fenjai's eyes, and he continued to fight Garcia with his infinite sword skills, and then used his spiritual power to secretly activate the Thunder Talisman. There is no need to worry about the safety of two delicious prey, which allows Garcia to unleash his full strength unscrupulously. Therefore, he relied on the advantages of high-altitude flying and the powerful corrosiveness of dark magic to continuously destroy the sword. Bang! Bang! Not only did he need to control the 16 swords of fighting Garcia, but he also had to secretly drive Fulei, which caused Zhang Fenjai to have a flaw in controlling the swords. In the end, with an inadvertent distraction, Garcia seized the opportunity to directly destroy two sharp swords. This made his face instantly pale, and at the same time, a trace of blood showed at the corner of his mouth. Seeing that the destroyed sword could actually injure the hateful boy, Garcia felt excited and continued to use the advantage of flight speed to attack the sword with dark magic. But at this moment, Zhang Fenjai's loud shouting suddenly came to his ears. The Taoist ancestors of the Sanking dynasty showed their magical powers, and the nine-night divine thunder subdued the demons. Just when Zhang Fenjai's roar had just ended, a strong and fatal sense of crisis suddenly emerged in Garcia's heart. After many years of cautious behavior, he rushed directly to Pan Switting and Wan Ran without any hesitation, intending to take them to temporarily escape from the place where he felt fatally dangerous. Boom! However, just as he was about to land on the roof of the building where Pan Switting and Wan Ran were, the dark sky was suddenly illuminated by a purple ray. Immediately afterwards, a purple thunderbolt as thick as a chopstick struck Garcia directly at a speed that spanned time and space. Ah! Accompanied by a miserable howl, Garcia fell heavily on the hard concrete floor like a thrown stone. Quickly retracting the 14 sharp swords in mid-air, and reuniting them into one sharp sword, he then used the impulse of Qing Feng step beside Garcia, and the sharp sword was directly pressed against his heart. Until this moment, Zhang Fenjai breathed a sigh of relief and began to carefully observe Garcia, who was being bombarded by the nine nights' divine thunder. The originally clean and tidy black tuxedo turned into black powder and fell on the concrete floor. A pair of strong and huge flesh wings had long been riddled with holes, and they had lost the ability to continue flying. The originally fair and jade complexion turned into that of an African black man. If it weren't for the silver light cast by the full moon above his head, he might have completely merged with the darkness at this time. At the same time, his breath was sluggish, his breathing was weak, and his eyes were closed tightly, indicating that his mind was directly stunned and injured by the Juxiao divine thunder. Facing the fainted Garcia, Zhang Fenjai didn't hesitate at all. He directly cut his heart with a sharp sword, then forced the evil-breaking talisman from his jacket pocket into his heart, and then attached the sealing talisman to the heart. After doing all this, Zhang Fenjai fell down on the concrete floor with a long sigh of relief, then put away his sharp sword and began to adjust his breath. Although Zhang Fenjai's actions just now seemed cruel, Pan Switting, who felt much better when she thought that the target of cruelty was the monster that had just captured her and her best friend, asked with a worried look on her face. "Zhang Fenjai, are you okay?" "Don't worry, I'm fine." After forcing out a smile, Zhang Fenjai closed his eyes and began to meditate to heal his injuries. While using the sword technique to split 16 swords, it also indirectly split the thoughts that were integrated into the swords. Therefore, although Garcia destroyed the two sharp swords and the sword's mind, causing his soul to be injured and vomiting blood, the injury caused by the destruction of his mind was not too serious. This is why he did not use the healing elixir given by his grandfather. While Pan Switting looked at Zhang Fenjai with concern, Wan Ran, who was obviously more interested in monsters, suddenly made a surprised sound after observing carefully for a while. "Shweting, this monster looks quite handsome." As a vampire among the Western alien races, in addition to mastering the ability to transform into bats and dark magic, they also have super healing abilities, which is the fundamental reason why they can continue to exist until now despite being fully restrained by the light power of the Church. When the remaining 9 heavens thunder in the body completely disappeared, Garcia's super healing ability began to repair the severely injured body, and at the same time, the dark skin color gradually returned to its original appearance. At the same time, the scarred flesh wings automatically retracted into the body, and the heart wound cut by the sword healed quickly, making him completely turn back into a normal Western foreigner. So, after hearing Wan Ran's reminder, Pan Switting turned her head to see the monster's clear face and couldn't help shouting. "Why is it him? Switting, do you know this monster?" Pan Switting's surprised tone made Wan Ran feel a little puzzled and asked. "Wan Ran, he is Garcia, the owner of Miro Sunshine Western Restaurant. He also gave us 2 top steaks and Führer red wine worth tens of thousands of yuan for free at noon today," Pan Switting still explained with some disbelief. "Schwetting, do you know why Garcia gives away steak and red wine for free?" At this moment, Zhang Fengjai opened his eyes and asked.